What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. Welcome in to another edition of the NFL Weekly. It is week 7 already. We're staring down the halfway point, just a few weeks away. Of course, break down everything the NFL has to offer this week. And of course, with me as always, my friend and co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. The sun's out. It's a little cool in San Diego, and we got, I don't know what happened yesterday. There was stuff in the air and wind, and I was getting wet when I walked outside. I'm just not used to that.
Yeah, it's October. We're still supposed to be staring down 85-degree days, but yeah, it's been a very mild summer. I'll come out and say it. We've had a couple, Labor Day weekend is always hot, and it was, but it seemed like those were few and far between. A very mild summer, as I knock on wood. But yeah, yesterday, pretty gnarly storm came through. But for the most part, seemed like everything's good. But it is, of course, time to dive into the NFL. And before we dive into week 7, we got some housekeeping to do in week 6. And, before we get into our thoughts, we knew it was going to come. It was just a matter of who and when. But we have our first casualty in the head coaching market. And look, 99% of the time in real life, you never want to celebrate anyone getting fired. But look, we're talking about NFL head coaches here. Still getting paid till 2029 is Brian Callahan. So not terribly sad for him. But yeah, Brian Callahan fired from the Tennessee Titans. And not a huge surprise there. The Titans, I believe this is now the 3rd or 4th year in a row where a rookie quarterback has gotten his coach fired. That might be a little tongue in cheek, but the last 4 years, the number 1 overall pick, their coach has been fired mid-season. That trend continues. Tennessee Titans, just not a very good football team. Brian Callahan, no longer the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I didn't see who the interim was. I know Bill Callahan was on that staff. I can't imagine Bill Callahan. I believe it's Mike McCoy. Now that I think I heard someone say Mike McCoy, the former Charger head coach.
That's correct.
It is. Okay. Yeah. All right. I did get that one. So I don't know if Bill Callahan's sticking around. Probably not. But Brian Callahan, his son, definitely gone. Raider Jim, your thoughts on that? And then, look, this is not happening in a vacuum. We know there are going to be other teams in the next few weeks that are going to be making similar changes. If you have any thoughts on who could be next on the chopping block.
Yeah, I agree with you. You never want to celebrate somebody losing their job, but it's at the same time, payroll, the buyouts, the paid through 29 or until 29. My goodness, that's a heck of a severance package. So I can't be that broken up or irritated by it. And it's just a bad team, terrible team. And what does it tell you about the Raiders, who could only put up 20 on them? That too is a statement. But Pete Carroll will not be on the list of people getting fired. But I'll tell you what, he needs to get his game going. Who will be fired next, or who's on the list? Aaron Glenn's definitely on the list. Mike McDaniel's on the list, if you ask me. Kevin Stefanski, and let's round out the group with Kellen Moore. That's my choices for who's going to be going.
I'll add one more to that. I didn't have Kellen Moore on there. Maybe that's my own biases. I bought into the doom and gloom. I mean, look, they're 1-5 and they're not a very good football team, but I was being told they were going to be the worst football team that we've seen in a very long time. And they're not there. They're not even the worst team in the league right now. I'll add one more to that. And I don't really think this should happen, but Zach Taylor, the Cincinnati Bengals, again, I think we all know why. It's not as simple as, the team isn't very good. It's just unfortunate because it seems like Zach Taylor hasn't been given the opportunity, because it seems like every time we hit week 4 or 5, we're wondering, was it Jake Browning or now is it Joe Flacco? But I agree with you. I think for me, Mike McDaniel is at the top of that list. Aaron Glenn, I think you could get Bill Belichick in his prime, and I still think he's only getting 5 or 6 wins out of this Jets team. They are atrocious. They are a hard watch. If Britain had an army that was close to ours, they might invade us just because we sent the Jets to them last week. But I think Mike McDaniel is the number one. And I think we've seen it really even in the offseason. There were probably some questions last season. Is he going to stick around? His press conferences are odd. Some of the quotes he's had sound a little closer to Spicoli in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, if you're catching my drift without me laying it out there. And overall, I just think the Miami Dolphins are a dysfunctional franchise. Again, the Zach Taylors, the Aaron Glenns, the Kellen Moores, for the most part, it's a bad football team. I don't think the Dolphins are a terrible football team. They're just a team that lacks function, or there lacks leadership
and management. Yes.
Yeah. Correct. And even with Tua coming to the podium and saying, we need a leader, blah, blah, blah. You're the leader, Tua. You're the guy that you're the highest paid player on the team, and you're the quarterback. You need to be the one leading those things. It's all bad in Miami. They almost got the job done against a very beaten up Charger team, but Ladd McConkey, man, makes 1 or 2 jukes within 20 seconds before that game ends. They end up getting in field goal range. I think it's going to be Mike McDaniel. And then I guess the next question would be, of all the guys who are going to get fired, who gets another shot? Because generally we see a head coach get fired and then they go back to the coordinator ranks. And, we've seen it with Brian Flores or some of these other offensive or defensive minds. Who's going to give them a shot down the line? I don't know if Mike McDaniel's ever going to get another shot at head coaching. So, and even Aaron Glenn, I don't know, but Aaron Glenn, you can sit there and be like, well, he knew what he was signing up for, but still, there were a lot bigger problems that the head coach. I think the Dolphins need to make a change as soon as possible. And again, you don't want to celebrate anybody getting fired. But even, to the college game, James Franklin getting fired. He's got a $50 million buyout. That is we all would love to be told by our employer, hey, we don't think you should work here anymore. Here's $50 million. As Ed Orgeron said when he left LSU. Cool. Where's the exit? Yeah, awesome. Sounds good to me. All right, I'll see y'all on the beach. So unfortunate, but it is a part of the game. Raider Jim, your week 6 thoughts overall.
Another week of just, I think we said it last week. I had heard somebody on the radio say, we won't know until Thanksgiving. I don't know if we're going to know by Thanksgiving. And I think you said that last week. We may not know at Thanksgiving. Some of the, I won't say nonsense, but just some of the surprises that were out there. Pull up the scores from last week real quick.
I agree with you. I think
the Bears out of nowhere. They end up winning that game. Shame on the Commanders. The Broncos, they're just barely hanging on, if you ask me. To go against a team like the Jets and only win by 2 points, and a lucky 2 points because they got that in the fourth quarter. The Bills.
Yeah.
The Bills, you couldn't put up points, couldn't get any yardage. There is no consistency in the league right now. And I don't know. Carolina beats the Cowboys. Just wild, just a wild week.
It really is. And I think one of the biggest microcosms that you can kind of point to is 2 or 3 weeks ago, Carolina shuts out Atlanta, 30-0. And then we look past this past week, Atlanta's going out and taking care of Buffalo. And, I talked about it last week. I didn't think Atlanta was going to win the game, but I think it was a 5.5. I did think they were going to cover. The biggest issue right now for the Bills, I believe, is the defense. The defense is bad. It was a terrible matchup because their run defense is one of the worst in the league. And folks, if you're not on the Bijan Robinson hype train, you need to find a way to get on, because for me right now, I think he is the best non-quarterback in the league. He is incredibly fun to watch. I think the Falcons are very good, but again, they're very good right now. So many things seem to change, and I'll go all the way back to Thursday, and yes, I will stand in front of that train. Not only did the Giants take care of business against the Eagles, but they dominated the Eagles. I'll talk a little bit more about that game when I get to the Eagles, but it was a devastating performance from the Eagles. But the Giants in particular, just going back to kind of my overall thought of, do we really know what's going on? This was a team that just I guess even less than that, 4 days before that, they were the one scalp that the Saints have. And then the Giants go out and beat the defending Super Bowl champ. So it is truly a week-to-week experience. And I agree. I think, Thanksgiving, I think we'll know about 2 or 3, 4 or 5 teams. Those are really good. These 5 or 6 teams, really bad. And then everything in the middle, you just kind of flip a coin and see when you're dealing with them, because it's going to be an incredible run to the end. I think the NFC is just a gauntlet. I really don't think there's any overall bad teams in the NFC. I think the Jets and Browns are by far, and the Titans, way lower than any of the kind of the bad teams in the NFC. I am, from a betting standpoint, it's hell, right? But as a sports fan, it's incredible. We're watching parity at its finest in a league that is built on parity, and it seems every year to get even more parodic. No, that can't be true. More parity. But anyways, it was an incredible week 6. I will say, not only do I not like 2 Monday night games, but why are we doing 2 Monday night games head to head with Major League Baseball playoffs? I get it. The NFL runs the world. I understand it. But you know what? I didn't watch really anything on too much on Monday. I saw scores. I got the previous channel. Sorry, I'm a one TV guy. Just how it is. And it's difficult. And at the end of the day, Major League Baseball playoffs, a lot more on the line. And guess what? We get it again this week. And guess what? Major League Baseball playoffs are still going to be going on. I don't know. It just seems unnecessary. You have all winter to fill in 2 games. I don't know. It's frustrating to me, but soapbox put away for now. I'm bringing it back out later. But time to dive into our game previews for week 7. And do just want to give our viewers a heads up. Having a little computer issue, so my notes are on my phone. So I will be looking down. Apologies. I try to always look at the camera, but, things happen. Anyways, diving into week 7, we are going to have 2 teams on byes. The Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills both taking the week off. We are going to start with our biggest spread of the weekend. And as much fun as Raider Jim had last week, I don't know how much fun he's going to have this week, but it is the Las Vegas Raiders heading to Kansas City to face the Kansas City Chiefs, who seem to have figured some things out. Chiefs are going to be 12.5-point favorites. 45.5 is our over-under. In terms of the money line, Vegas plus 525, Kansas City minus 800. No, these are not college football lines. This is an NFL line. Raider Jim, as always, no one talks Raider football before you on this network. The floor is yours.
Yeah, let me start with last week's Raider game, and I'm glad they won. Of course, it was a victory, but I had a friend reach out to me on Monday And he said, hey, must have felt like winning the Super Bowl, huh? And I said, no, I felt like the varsity guys were walking around puffing their chests out because they just beat the JV. Big deal. You doubled the score on Tennessee. Not only did you double the score, you only scored 2 touchdowns. That's the best you could do. 68 yards rushing. Come on, really? 158 yards passing. So where you should have gone out and really run it up on them, you can't do it because you're not qualified to do it. You're not capable of doing it. Ashton Jenney did get 75 yards rushing, which is okay, much better than he'd been doing. But still, you take the losses out of that because after that, it was Geno Smith -3 yards, Mostert -4 yards. So the net to that is 68 yards. Now they're going to go into Kansas City, and you said it. They look like they figured out some things. When they could put the game on the line and play it like they played against Detroit, I don't even want to think what they're going to do to the Raiders. And they're playing at Arrowhead. 6% chance of rain. So that could go either way. I don't really, it might be misty a little bit, but at least it's not torrential downpour. Geno Smith is probably going to have another 2 or 3 interception game. I think they will shut down the run, no problem. Just everything is stacked against the Raiders this coming weekend, and it's going to be Kansas City comes back out. Now they don't look at the game like it's a lesser opponent, but truth is, it is a lesser opponent, and they know what they were able to do against Detroit. Come out, duplicate that performance, kick it up a little bit, go ahead, and if you can double it up on these guys, go ahead. I'm not going to touch the spread. On 12.5 is just too much. Kansas City, Andy might just be a nice guy to Pete Carroll and not get the 12 points. The over-under at 45.5, I don't even think the Raiders can do that. I think that the Chiefs will probably put up 28, but I think the Raiders will put up maybe 13. I don't see them getting in the end zone twice. So give me the Chiefs, give me the under, and that's going to be a hard one to watch.
Yeah, this is a tough one. That seemed a little bit of a backhanded compliment. You must have felt like you just won your Super Bowl. Like just quiet down. It's the Tennessee Titans. I know we're not great right now, but come on now. Look, I will say one thing about the Raiders. I like their defense. I had questions about them. They're the one bright spot. Again, I'm trying to find some positives here. 12.5 points is a lot, especially in a divisional game. I'm going to buy a 0.5 point. I'm going to take the Raiders plus 13. Not really though, but just for the sake of the podcast. Sorry, I can't envision myself on a Sunday hoping that Geno Smith is able to cover a 13-point spread. But for the sake of the podcast, buy that 0.5 point. I do think this is an opportunity where the Chiefs, they're bringing at least Rashid Rice is eligible to play. So you have to imagine he'll be in. And who knows, maybe they start a little slowly getting him integrated, because if you're going to cover a 13-point spread in the NFL, you have to get out to a pretty quick start. And then you kind of have to stay on the gas. And I don't know if Kansas City is going to necessarily A, want, or B, need to stay on the gas. So, again, for the sake of the podcast, give me the Raiders plus 13. And I'm with you though. I got to take the under. The only way I see this going over is if Kansas City can get 31 to 35 points, and then the spread goes away, because unfortunately I don't see the Raiders scoring 20 to 24.
Daniel Carlson 3 field goals. That's it.
There you go. Well, and that's unfortunately probably what we're going to be looking at. So 45.5, I think that is way too high for a Raider offense. And again, I think the Raiders defense can at least do enough to keep it within 10 to 14 points. One of those games where, the announcers will say, oh, they're one play away from turning this into a game, but everybody watching kind of understands, like, yeah, you're right, but it's pretty much done. So give me the Raiders plus 13, and the under 45.5. Moving on to the Indianapolis Colts. For the second time this year, they are heading to Los Angeles to face, this time, the Los Angeles Chargers. Of course, Indy's only loss of the year actually happened in SoFi Stadium against the Rams, so something to keep in mind. The Chargers are going to be 2-point favorites in this one. 48.5 is your over-under. In terms of the money line, pretty much even, but we got Indy at plus 110 and the Chargers at minus 130. Raider Jim, AFC West remains your jurisdiction. Indy at LA. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm still on the Daniel Carlson bandwagon. No, but he's not going to be MVP because Baker Mayfield's going to be MVP. I will say it again, and I'll get to Baker later. But this is actually going to be an interesting game. I understand, I guess, home field advantage. That's how the Chargers are a 2-point favorite. But here's what's going to happen when they take the field. There's not going to be they can't win this one by luck. With 60 seconds left on the clock. You're not going to do that against Indianapolis. The Colts on the offense, they got a good running game, and they will have success running the ball. And when they have that success, they're going to open up the pass game, and then Daniel's going to do his thing. And watch out, it's going to be Indiana Jones. He's going to do his thing. And then the other thing on the other side of the ball, the Chargers, they do have some success with the pass. Colts secondary is marginal at best. However, they've got a hellacious pass rush. Yeah. And I was watching poor Justin Herbert get pinged around like a pinball. And that's going to happen again. They also tend to create turnovers. The Colt defense does. So by virtue of that, I'll take a point and give me Indianapolis plus 3 over under 48.5. I'm going to go under because I don't see this being a shutout because I think the Chargers are going to get stifled.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I'm going to do something I don't normally do. Generally, we do this pod and we just talk and blah, blah, blah. But lately, great work with our producer who kind of gets these shorts out and then the main podcast. But over the past few weeks, we've had our quote unquote trap games have been kind of their standalone videos. And a lot of the comments are saying, this isn't a trap game for this team, blah, blah, blah. When I say trap game, I'm talking about for us, the bettors, not the team. So hopefully that is the start of this clip and we can get rid of some of that confusion. So, but again, I feel like this is a betting trap game. Raider Jim, you kind of alluded to it. Chargers are beaten up. They needed everything. They needed all 60 minutes to beat a dysfunctional Miami team and needed a late field goal to do it. Indy, as you mentioned, their secondary marginal. The stats definitely will lay that out for you as well. They're in the bottom half of the league against the pass. But I will say the way Indy has jumped up on teams, it makes it difficult because when you're up by whatever 14 points early on, guess what? That's going to turn into a 40, 50 pass game or attempts a game. And you are going to pick up yards eventually. NFL offenses will pick up yards if you let them throw the ball 50 times a game. But you hit the nail on the head. It's the pass rush. For me, that's where it all comes down to. I'm not even going to mess with the spread here. I'm going to take Indy on the money line. I think Indy wins this game. I think the Chargers need to get healthy. The question of when they get healthy and is it too late? That's something that will need to be answered because it's not total panic time for the Chargers, but they are looking like the third best team in that division. And that makes things very difficult to make a playoff spot if you're third in your division. So give me Indy. In terms of the over-under here, I am going to go with the over. And I do think the Chargers, because their running game is just so bad, I do think they are going to throw the ball. And it's going to be enough to get us over 48.5. Not terribly confident about it. Much more confident with Indy on that. But again, I do think obviously the Chargers can throw the ball. Been very impressed with Quentin Johnson this year. He's kind of been the butt of a lot of jokes, and he's had a really, really good year, as has Keenan Allen, obviously Ladd McConkey, and Justin Herbert's doing everything he can to stay upright. But I do think Indy just has too much here, and the Chargers are just a little still too beaten up. But a lot of talk in the trade market about Breece Hall to the Chargers. That would be huge for the Chargers, but it's going to cost them a lot if I put my general manager hat on. Anyways, moving on to our little bit of a overlap here of the NFC East and AFC West matchup. It's going to be the New York Giants, the somewhat red hot New York Giants, heading to Mile High to face the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are going to be 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is 40. The money line side of things, the Giants plus 270 and the Broncos minus 340. Raider Jim, your thoughts, Giants at Denver.
Real interesting on the weather in this game. It didn't show that it was going to rain, but it does show possible showers. But it didn't give a percentage. So I don't know what that means come game time. Let me tell you, this New York Giants team, there's just something odd about them, because I have a feeling they're just not saying it and it's just not hype. They really believe that they're going to start going out and winning games every time they take the field. And after I watched the recap of Denver against the Jets, let me tell you, the Jets, first of all, let me say this about the Jets. Minus 10 in the passing yards, 92 yards rushing, total yards for the game, 82. And for that type of offensive output, on the other side of the ball, the Broncos could only put up 13 points. They've got some issues maybe with Bo Nix. He seems to be regressing. He's definitely not playing up to this level where he should be, especially against a team like that. So what's going to happen this weekend? Guy we talked about last week, New York Giants, wears 0, and he is a defensive lineman. Brian Burns, the skinniest defensive lineman I've ever, big dude, but slight. He is going to rattle Bo Nix, and I think he's going to rattle him a lot. Cam Scatterbo probably going to get out there and have a little more success than 92 yards that the Jets did. I think they're going to come out, play strong. Watch out, because the Giants are going to come to play at Mile High Stadium. I will take the Giants plus 7 all day long, and over under 40, just by virtue of the fact the Broncos couldn't put it up against the Jets. They're probably not going to put it up against this team either, the Giants. So look for 20-17 under the 40.
Yeah, I'm with you on the under. I think two teams with the strengths being the defense. I mean, Denver's defense might be the best in the league. And again, when you play the Jets, your stats are gonna, be a little bit inflated. But I really, really like Denver's defense. But you mentioned it. It's the offense that really does need some help. The Giants side of things, defensive line, the pass rush, very, very impressive. My concern here is the Giants on the road. They're a very different team on the road, or at least we've seen that early on. Again, we saw them a few weeks ago. They take down the Chargers, and we go, oh my gosh, Jaxson Dart is for real. Next up, it's the New Orleans Saints. Oh, they're the worst team in the league, right? Well, the Giants are going to take care of business. No, they lose by 12. And then, maybe that was a flash in the pan against the Chargers. They're going to get killed by the Eagles. But no, in New Jersey, they get the job done. They dominate the Eagles. This game, obviously, in Denver. And in terms of take the crowd out of it, Denver has the biggest home field advantage because of the elements. Again, I think if you've never been to Denver, it's very difficult to explain just walking, not playing, just walking at altitude. If you're not used to it, is very difficult. And again, it's always kind of been maybe that'll be something down the line. I could do a little bit more research of when they come, because normally teams will arrive in the city Friday, they'll do a walkthrough on Saturday. They want to be there for as little as possible, at least continentally. I mean, I know the London games are a little different, but I do wonder if Denver, or teams that come to Denver, if you would see maybe a correlation of, what they got here on Tuesday, and maybe that bumps things up. I don't know. Again, just kind of thinking out loud. That's a big reason why I am actually going to take Denver -6.5. But I will say, if that number does get up to 7, I think you do have to flip it the other way.
Oh, yeah.
I think 6.5 is the ceiling for Denver, and I'm even still probably a little reckless with that. But the one thing I really do think this Denver defense is going to make life difficult, not only for Jaxson Dart, but for Cam Skattebo. And the secondary of the Broncos is a lot better than the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, I'll get to them in a moment, but there were nobodies on that team. You have Malik Neighbors, who was out. Slayton was out as well. I think there was I want to call him Chris Humphreys, because that was the old basketball player, but I don't know, some kid Humphreys, 8 catches, 100 yards. So I think this is a moment for the Giants where they are going to maybe take a bit of a step back. Not really, though, because Denver is a very good team, but give me Denver 6.5. That's a lot, but I think this defense gets after it. And I really do think the offense eventually is going to figure it out. Why not now? In a spot where maybe all of your main thoughts should be, Jaxson Dart is going to struggle. Bo Nix is going to struggle against a good defensive line. Maybe going back with the inverse, saying, you know what, maybe Bo Nix, this is the time he figures it out, and we all go, wow, impressed that he figured it out against that team. Also, I will say, look, and this is as a football fan, not as an Eagles fan, but as a football fan, I am happy for Brian Daboll. I want Brian Daboll to keep his job. I think he's a very good coach. He's gotten really the short end of the stick, it seems like, a lot. So again, as a football fan, I'm happy for Brian Daboll. One other
and I didn't put him on my list. I did.
Oh, you
I,
did? Wow.
I thought about it, but I didn't.
I mean, I think with the way Jaxson Dart is playing, he's almost kind of, unless the ground caves in on him. I do think at the very least he's given himself one more year. That, hey, you know what? We have our quarterback, we have our running back. Let me work with these guys now. I hope that's the case. One final thought on this game, maybe a little of emotion on this one. Demaryius Thomas, the late great Denver Broncos wide receiver, will have I believe his number retired, but they're definitely doing a little bit of a ceremony for him. So I don't know if you're a believer in that stuff, in the emotional side of it. There will be some emotion for the Broncos in this one. Moving on to the game I really didn't want to talk about, but I am a professional, or at least I pretend to be. It is the Philadelphia Eagles heading to Minnesota. And somehow, some way, the Philadelphia Eagles are 1.5-point favorites. The over-under is 43.5. In terms of the money line, -125 for the Birds, +105 for the Vikings. I'll get to the Vikings in this game momentarily, but obviously I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't address last week, even though I kind of already did. But a little deeper into it, obviously the Eagles, first of all, it has to be maybe the worst day in Philadelphia sports history. You have Orion Kerkering, who I will actually talk about later, with one of the more or WTF moments in sports, where he throws home instead of throwing to first and essentially eliminates the Phillies. And literally as that's happening, the Giants go down, they take the lead into halftime, and you go, okay, you know what? Giants are playing well. We're going to figure it out. And then the Eagles came out and were completely lifeless. Really, really sad stuff from the Eagles in that one. And the drama continues. A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts. We continue to just kind of do this. Who's happy? Who isn't? My question is, who is going to be a leader on this team? Now, Lane Johnson is the unquestioned leader. He is the last of the core four of Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, and Jason Kelce. He needs to be the one to be grabbing A.J. Brown and A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts by the ear, dragging him into a room and telling them to knock that shit off, because it's fine when you're winning football games and A.J. Brown's putting out cryptic tweets, but when you're getting dominated by lesser teams, it becomes an issue. With that being said, two things can be true at the same time. The Philadelphia Eagles are not a very good football team. It is also October. So I'm trying to kind of keep myself, again, I even said it last week, I'm not going to press the panic button. I know where the panic button is. I pulled it out of storage. I'll give you that. But I'm not pressing it just yet. Again, it's about performances. It's a little unfortunate here. I'm almost positive the Vikings had a bye last week. It's unfortunate when you are the Eagles and you played last Thursday. Sometimes when you play that Thursday night game, you're like, this sucks. But we're going to have a 4-day head start on our next opponent. The Vikings have been ready for them all year, all week, or 2 weeks, I should say. I'm taking Minnesota here. And again, I think it's just because of what I've seen from the Eagles. I'm taking them on the money line again, plus or minus 1.5. If you want to play that missed extra point game, fine. I'm just going to deal with the money line, get a little bit extra value out of it. I do think the Eagles are in a little bit of trouble, but again, it's early on. The one real concerning thing was Zadarius Smith just retiring out of nowhere. Our middle linebacker or linebacker who we just brought in, who is kind of our best pass rusher right now. He's gone. He has abruptly retired. That's a weird one. But anyways, that's going to be an issue. My big question, JJ McCarthy expected to play. That's interesting to me, but I really think this is a great matchup for JJ McCarthy because Quinion Mitchell, when he went out of that game against the Giants, the Eagles defense was nothing. I could have gone out there and throw for 250 yards if I had a little bit more body mass to take some of those hits, but it's really, really bad when you're looking at going, oh my gosh, is Adoree Jackson going to have to be matched up with Justin Jefferson? And Vic Fangio's defense, look, the hallmark of Vic Fangio's defense is you're going to play stout between the 20s, or outside of the 20s, I should say. You're going to get your yards, but once you get into the red zone, his defense is going to tighten up. And that's the hard part. Unfortunately, our run defense is not good. I really like Minnesota here. JJ McCarthy coming back. He looked good in that one quarter that we saw, but I think it's a great opportunity for JJ McCarthy or Carson Wentz, depending on who we see, to carve up this defense. But in terms of the over-under, I'm actually going to go with the under, despite the fact that I think Minnesota is going to put up points. Until I see things otherwise, I don't think the Eagles are going to put up points. When I tell you, I would not be surprised to see Minnesota win this game 31-6. That's where I am about this team right now. But again, it's October. It's still early. We can figure things out. But after what I saw last week, if you struggle to go to New York, it's going to be very, very difficult to go to Minnesota. But with that being said, Raider Jim, your thoughts, Philadelphia at Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota, the problem is that their quarterback situation, who's under center, and nobody is. It's like these two guys, somebody could run away with the job, but nobody wants to run away with the job. Still, they'll be productive against the Eagles on Sunday. Philadelphia, in a losing cause, Hurts got 283 yards passing, which should be something that the Eagle fans hang on to and hope he can duplicate that effort against the Vikings, because the running game just isn't there right now for the Eagles. Saquon, I think I read, has 325 yards on the season. Tell you what, one more game like that, he could be in the Raiders' backfield. That's how well he's playing.
Straight up. Aston Genty for Saquon Barkley. Straight up. Let's make the trade. We'll call Mark. I'll call Jeff. We'll get this figured out.
We're in. But it's really a shame. So why would this game be any different? Well, if he's ready, if this is it, if he shows up ready, if this is going to be his breakout game, because again, like you said, it's only October. This is only week, 7. He has if this is his breakout game, couldn't pick a better one, because the Minnesota run defense is not good. And so it's set. The table is set for him to come out there and make some noise. I don't understand why he is not performing like he has the last several years before the trade, like he did last year. So I think it's just a slow start. I still like the guy an awful lot. The only thing that came into my head, and this is the way I work, it's like I'm seeing him on a lot of TV commercials now. Is there a little too much of that and concentration and effort on that, and kind of just like not that hunger and the fire that was in him the last few seasons? Probably not. I mean, look at the commercials that Mahomes does. Yeah. That kid's on TV every 30 seconds on a Sunday. Anyway, what's going to happen in this one? Again, the quarterback problems for Minnesota, I think they're real, and I think Philadelphia is going to do just enough to keep them out of the end zone or minimize their offensive efforts. 1.5, I'll take Philadelphia money line on this one, but the over-under, if it's going to be a shootout, it's going to be fun, and both teams are going to have to bring it. So I will go over in this one, because I really do think there's going to be points on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and for everyone saying, oh my gosh, the Eagles never throw the ball. Well, they threw the ball like at the most they've had in the last 2 years. I think it was 48 times.
Yeah.
How'd that work? So again, that's not where the Eagles want to be. And again, I really do think the Eagles struggling is a lot different than the New York Jets struggling, right? Like, we don't see an out for the Jets. If the Eagles come out and dominate the Vikings, I think people will go, oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. And again, for my fellow Eagles fans, and mainly for myself, the one positive, the weekend could not have gone any better, because Dallas lost to Carolina and Washington lost to the Bears. So
it's that.
Still in first place, still got some breathing room for a bit. But the problem for the Eagles is their schedule is daunting. And again, Minnesota, another really, really tough test. Excited to see if the Eagles, I just want to see, like, I don't even care about them winning the game. I just want to see better execution. And I'd love to see AJ Brown, I don't know, talk to the media with a smile on his face, which is absolutely ridiculous if that's what I want, but it's where we are in Philadelphia. But moving on to a old school rivalry. The whole reason the Dallas Cowboys are in the East, the Washington Commanders at the Dallas Cowboys. The Commanders are going to be 1.5-point favorites on the road. 55.5 is our over under. Washington -125 on the money line. Dallas 105 on the money line for themselves. So I do want to say we heard from the commissioner's office. If you remember last week, I got a unsportsmanlike conduct for I brought someone up who probably shouldn't have been brought up. Again, not on purpose. And then Raider Jim may have said a team name. The commissioners called and they said, look, no one's getting fined, no one's getting suspended, but we're watching you. So we're all on notice. The commissioner is watching. Who is the commissioner? Who knows? Probably a guy just behind the curtain. But anyways, in terms of this game, I really think it's kind of similar to what the Giants, I talked with the Giants. Very different team at home. Dallas is a very different team at home. This is a good football team when they're playing in Jerry's world. I don't know. It doesn't always make sense, but I really do think Dallas comes out and they get the job done. Washington might be in a little bit of trouble. I think their defense is a big time issue right now. And Dallas, that's their strength right now. I really do think they're going to drop back. They're going to throw the ball against a bad Washington defense. So give me Dallas on the money line, plus 105. 55.5. I believe this is the largest number we've talked about this year. And I understand why it's 55.5. I'm actually going to go under. And a big reason why is Dan Quinn. There are going to be moments in this game where Dan Quinn can take 3 points. He's going to go for it on 4th down. And maybe that in turn forces Brian Schottenheimer to kind of react to that. You know, the old, hey, they're not kicking field goals, so we're not kicking field goals. That might bring the number down a little bit. But again, 55.5, I know why it's that high. Wouldn't be surprised to see it go over. But for the sake of the podcast, I'm going to say under 55.5. But I really do like Dallas on the money line. I think this is a big game for them. And again, at home, this is a much different team than when they are on the road. And they don't have to deal with Rico Dowdell this week, so that's a plus. But Raider Jim, your thoughts? Washington slight favorites on the road as they head to Dallas.
If it wasn't for the home field advantage, I could buy into all that. And then I look at last week's scores. And I look at the Panthers beating the Cowboys. And it's like, wow. And in that losing effort, what was it? They put up 57 points between the two teams. So I do like the over in this one. Washington can put up points. That they can do. And it could very well be the 12th man on the field for the Commanders is the Cowboys defense, because that defense is still not good. I don't care what anybody says, but you're absolutely right. As far as the offense goes for the Cowboys, they get rolling. Washington can put up points. They're going to put up points. The Cowboys need to match them, though, score for score. And it could be a very entertaining game if that happens, as long as the Cowboys don't make mistakes. I think offensively they're going to be sound. Can their defense keep Jaden Daniels off the field or minimize the impact that the offense has for Washington when they do get on the field? Hold them to 3. Don't let them get in the end zone. That's the wild card right here. I like this one. I like Washington on the money line, and I like over, but this could be a real fun game to watch. It could be like, old school Thanksgiving when they were one of the big games to watch on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, this is a sneaky good game. I know there are probably people who are going to, kind of gloss over it. But Dallas, one of these teams is going to make the playoffs, I assume. Someone's got to finish second in the East. And I think finishing second in the East, and maybe I'm a little cocky by just putting someone in second, but, I'm down on the Eagles, but I'm not that down. Anyways, one of these teams need to make the playoffs. This is a huge game for both because, of course, for tiebreak and things like that. Really, really interested to see how this one goes. And I kind of do want to see a shootout, even though I would lose my bet. But a 34-31 game comes down to the last second. Brandon Aubrey kicks a 400-yard field goal. It would be incredible. Moving on. This is probably, it is. It is the game of the week. And of course, you're going to have to make a decision if you're a baseball fan, because it is a Monday Night Football game. It's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading to Detroit, licking their wounds after the butt kicking they took at Arrowhead last Sunday. The Lions are going to be 5-point favorites in this one. The over-under sits at 52.5. In terms of the money line, Tampa Bay plus 200, Detroit minus 240. Raider Jim, your thoughts? Tampa at Detroit.
Here I go. I'm going to campaign for Baker. This far into the season, okay, first 6 games of the season, he's throwing at 66%. He's got 1,539 yards. He's got 12 touchdowns. And he's like the anti-Geno Smith. He's thrown 1 interception in 6 games. Hell, Geno Smith doubles that in the first 7 minutes of any game. That's what I'm telling you. Unfortunately, here's the deal. Tampa Bay's defense isn't stellar, especially against the pass. Wrong team to have not a strong pass defense if you're playing against the Lions. And the other thing is, Jared Goff must be giddy. Just can't wait, because that pass defense for Tampa Bay, they allow 7 yards per catch. And Jared's just going to go out there and just poke holes in them. So they're going to have to come up with this miraculous defensive stand and scheme. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do so. Baker, I think, is still going to be successful. I don't know if you saw the highlight of him, his rookie wide receiver who did the one-handed catch. And when he went up to him afterwards and said, "Don't you ever disrespect one of my passes like that again, or we got a problem." And I was like, that's a leader. That is a leader. So that's the kind of thing I think you want to see out there in Philadelphia. Definitely what I'd like to see in Las Vegas. But what's going to happen in this game? I'll take Tampa Bay plus 5.5. I think they're going to be able to keep it close. The over-under, I got no issues going over on this one all day long. I think it's going to be, again, game of the week. Could be game of the first half of the season, but it's just going to be a fun one to watch. And let's again, the key is going to be, can Tampa Bay do something in their secondary to keep them in the game?
Yeah, I just kind of pulled up because I was interested to see, you brought up the MVP. I tell you what, you're Daniel Jones at 45-1. You'd make a lot of shirts if you hit that one. Does seem like, this, according to DraftKings, it was very difficult for me to find it on Boutte, and I don't want to even mess with my computer, open up any more tabs, and my whole computer might blow up. But Patrick Mahomes is your favorite at plus 175. And then Baker and Josh, both 3-1. And then a heavy drop off when we get to Drake May, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, 16-1. One thing that's very interesting, Lamar Jackson, 30-1 to win MVP. Dak Prescott, 40-1. Lamar Jackson has better odds than Daniel Jones by 50%. And don't do the math, but 30-1 versus 45-1. That's interesting. But anyways, in terms of this game, I just wanted to kind of get those out there because that was an interesting thought that I had. I like Tampa as well, plus 5.5. I think this is a field goal game. I think Detroit does win eventually. I do think we go over 52.5. This is, I think both of these teams look and they go, there's a very real chance we are staring at the NFC Championship game right now. And with that being said, you're going to need to win these games if you want the home field advantage. Now, I brought up Detroit and them being indoors, and then eventually they're going to have to go outdoors in January. I mean, if you put a gun to their head, at least weather-wise, Tampa would be the place they would want to go in the NFC. Mm-hmm. Now, the team, that's another issue. Detroit is very, very good. I just don't think they're good enough to cover 5.5 against a very, very good Tampa team, I should say. The other part of it too for Detroit, it seems like we say this pretty much every year, but continue to deal with injuries, even though Aiden Hutchinson playing well. Although I will say Aiden Hutchinson, I mean, I assume he knew he was going to get flagged. One of the more obvious roughing the passers, it was 2 full steps and then hit Patrick Mahomes. I'm borderline surprised he didn't get suspended for a month. But speaking of suspensions, Brian Branch for the Detroit Lions, he will not be playing in this one, and that is because of his his actions on Juju at the end of Sunday night's game.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate. And it's bad even when your coach comes out and was like, yeah, that was bad. And Dan Campbell said, yeah, that's not the guy. And then I did see a quote from Brian Branch today that kind of doubled down on it. And he said, I understand that, I understand why I got suspended, but you know what? Someone had to do it. Something like that. And there have been other players that have been like, I don't condone it, but I understand it. Sounds like Juju's got a bit of a reputation. So
he can talk, man.
That was I just worked a T Swift in there, and I didn't even need it. A bit of a reputation. There might be some Swifties out there that'll be happy on that one. But anyways, Tampa Bay plus 5.5, and give me the over 52.5. I want to see a shootout. The one at least somewhat positive with these Monday night games is we do have staggered starts. So this game will go off at 4 on the West Coast. The other game starts at 7, so you're not having to do the back and forth with that as well with baseball, but just keep that in mind. Raider Jim, moving on to, we're going across the pond. And you know what? Look, the last few weeks, we've been able to not have to talk about London games because they haven't been great. This is really unfortunate that we're sending the Los Angeles Rams and the Jacksonville Jaguars to London, even though it seems like Jacksonville's there every year now that I say it out loud. But the Los Angeles Rams are going to be 3-point favorites in this one. The over-under is 45. We are playing this at Wembley, just for posterity's sake, not Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Still London, but anyways, I also believe England is 80% London because that's what everybody, you watch enough soccer and everyone, the entire Premier League is from London. But anyways, in terms of the money line, the Rams are going to be minus 150 and the Jags are plus 130. Raider Jim, Rams versus Jaguars across the pond. Who you like?
Yeah, I would like to give Jacksonville a nod in this one. I just can't do it. The only thing that Jacksonville has going for them this week against the Rams defense is that on the Rams offensive side of the ball, Puka Nacua is questionable and may not play. Yeah. If that happens, Matthew Stafford loses a big target. He's down to Devontae Adams. Well, a lot of times you would just say, that's plenty of target. That's all you need. But on the Jacksonville side, you've got Travis Hunter. Mm-hmm. Travis Hunter is going to make life miserable if Adams is going to be the go-to guy on Sunday. Now, the positive to that, if you're a fan and you're watching and you want to get up at 6 o'clock to watch the Rams and the Jaguars, which I do not, actually, that is going to be a heck of a matchup. If it's those two guys all afternoon going at each other, that could be some real action to see. But then we go back to reality and we go back to the other side of the offensive ball, and that is Jacksonville. The offensive line is not good. Old Trevor is getting banged around more than Justin Herbert, and that's saying something. And once you get pressure on him, bad things happen. And, somehow there's a correlation between Trevor's bad decisions and getting knocked around a little bit. Once it's happened, it's almost like he's gun shy back there. And I think that what are you going to say, that the Rams defensive line is not going to get to him against the Jacksonville offensive line? That's just a silly statement. They will get to him. They're going to put pressure on him. And just because I talked through it like that, even without Puka Nacua putting on his cleats and getting on the field, if that does happen to play out that way, I still like the Rams minus 2.5. Over under 45. I can see it over in this one. I can see a real nice, 28-21. There's 49 points. We're good to go. 28-24, 52 points. We're good to go. So give me the Rams minus 2.5. Give me the over 45.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that I cannot believe that I'm saying out loud. But I when I say it, after you stop laughing, actually think about it. The AFC South is the best division in football. I mean, you got the Indianapolis Colts who have a claim to be the best team in football. The Jaguars have some issues, but they're a very good team. They're inconsistent. A Travis Hunter phantom pass interference call away from being, I believe, undefeated. And the Houston Texans, who I'm going to talk about in a moment, I personally believe the Houston Texans are the most underrated team in football right now. AFC South, and I get it, the Tennessee Titans in there, but let's enjoy it for a minute. I really do think there's a very good chance we see 3 AFC South teams in the playoffs. But with that being said, in terms of this game, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to come down to trench play, and it's heavily favoring the Rams. On these games, when you see a line that's -3, it's just a question of which way I'm buying that half a point, and I'm buying it for the Rams side, just like you, Raider Jim, -2.5. In terms of the over-under, everything you said is correct. Just for me, on London games, I just bet the under. That you just bet the under for whatever reason. I don't know if it's the travel, the field, the coaches not being able to maybe put in a ton game plan wise. It just seems like it always goes under. With that being said, someone showed me a stat. I believe the over-under is exactly 50-50 since we've started doing these London games. So I don't know, but in my head, I just always see these games go under. And I don't know, you look back at last week and goodness gracious, what was it, 13-11? I mean, that's a high scoring baseball game. So I'm going to take the under, but again, it's just because it's in London and I've just told myself, just take the under. I don't know if I'll be waking up at 6:30 to watch this, but I will tell you a lot better chance to wake up for this one than the Broncos Jets. So it's not a 0% chance like last week was. We'll see. I don't know. Like I said, maybe set an alarm for 6:20, turn it on and roll back over and maybe have Iron Eagle or whoever's doing that kind of serenade me back to sleep. But I really do think it's going to be a good game. It's just too bad. You got to wake up really early to check it out. But
and home game in Jacksonville this weekend would have been good because it's a 96% chance of showers.
Oh, perfect.
That would have been exciting.
Oh, yeah. That would have been. Hey. And there's one other thing that I do want to say about Jacksonville, and a big reason why they are playing as well, or at least their record is what it is. They turn the ball over, or they force turnovers. They are, I believe someone just tied them for the biggest turnover differential, but that has been a big part of their game. It was a big part of how they were able to beat the Chiefs as well. So that is a caveat. Jacksonville, can they take the ball away? Final game we're going to be diving into in depth, and it is the second Monday Night Football game. Really tough on I'm just realizing it now. I mean, the Mariners, if the Mariners are in this game or in the World Series or ALCS, if it's still going on, their team's going to be playing at the same time. But anyways, great problem to have, by the way. Anyways, the Houston Texans, they're heading to Seattle. This will be the second Monday Night Football game. Seahawks are going to be 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is 41. Money line sits plus 165 for Houston, minus 195 for Seattle. Raider Jim, your thoughts? Houston at Seattle.
Now, it's not going to be the explosive game like we have with Tampa Bay and Detroit, but I will tell you, this will be a game worth watching because it could very well be that pitching duel where you get the guys that go out there and they throw 8 innings of shutout ball and take it into the 9th, and let's see who's going to come out with 1 run ahead. Houston, dominant defense. They've got a fantastic defense, but guess what? So do the Seahawks. I think between them, Seahawks have given up 117 points, and I think the Houston has given up 108. Oh no, 61. They've given up 61. Dominant defense. This is going to be good, but CJ Stroud has to be efficient. He has got to have an error-free game on this one. They're playing in Seattle, 31% chance of rain, and they never close that thing up. It's going to be down there getting wet, going to be getting soggy, but I think Seattle 3.5, don't like that. I think that's too much. Houston's going to come in. They're going to make a game of it. The defense is going to play like they do every week. Can they shut down the Seahawks? Probably, but the offense for Houston has to be efficient. No mistakes, no turnovers. Give me Houston +4 in this one. Just by virtue of the weather, you would think that it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I don't think so. But give me a point and give me over 40 on this one.
Yeah, this is a sneaky good game. Again, there is another one. My notes are on here. apologies to the Falcons and Niners fans. It was very close on what the last game I was going to talk about or we were going to talk about. And yeah, I just chose this one. And a lot of it was because I wanted to talk about Houston. 70-10 the last 2 weeks. And look, I understand it was a whatever Cooper Rush, Baltimore team, Tennessee, but 70-10 in the NFL, that is very, very impressive. Houston defensively, elite, as you mentioned. And as good as Denver's defense is, and I think Houston's right there, I think Houston's offense is actually better than Denver's. And I think we're going to see that in this one. I'm going to take 3.5 because I never turn down plus 3.5. That's just sacrilege to me. But plus 165 might also make it onto my ticket. I might double up on this one. I am very bullish on the Texans. The only thing I do somewhat worry about is what I kind of mentioned earlier. The last 2 weeks they played, well below average teams. Seattle is above average, if not very good. And Seattle's another team that's kind of flying under the radar. It's Mike Macdonald. I believe it's Mike Macdonald because Mike McDaniel is in. Yeah, so Mike Macdonald, very, very good coach. And Sam Darnold is really turning into that. And I know this is a dirty word or a dirty phrase, but that game manager. But you know what? Yep. That's what Seattle needs. They have a great defense. Go out there, as you mentioned, don't turn the ball over. But I do think he is going to struggle a bit in this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see Seattle kick a field goal last second to win it, but that's where the plus 3.5 comes in. But I definitely like Houston to cover that. In terms of the over-under, I'm also going to go with the under. Wouldn't be surprised. It is kind of a low number when you have CJ Stroud and Sam Darnold. I know they're not greatest quarterbacks ever, but definitely on the lower end. But I just think these defenses are going to get after it. And the other part of it on the offensive side of things, and I always kind of bring this up, and I don't know, maybe people care, but I do. These out-of-conference games, you're not really going to open the playbook up a ton. I talked about Tampa Bay, Detroit. They may need that win to separate a tiebreaker. Houston, Seattle, the only time these two teams are going to face again, it'll be a neutral site in the Super Bowl. So, I don't think either offense wants to put a ton on tape against a NFC West or AFC South opponent. So I do think we stay under. I'm looking at probably a 20-17 game, maybe 21-17 type thing to just stay there. But very, very interesting as we finish up week 7, at least the diving into the big ones. I would not. Great Monday Night Football. It's just I want to watch baseball too. But again, I don't know the schedule for baseball. There's a very real chance we get 2 sweeps in the LCS, so maybe there will be no baseball on anyway. But just throwing that out there, 2 really good Monday Night Football games. I might maybe I'll do the Costco thing and I'll just go buy a TV, have it for the weekend, and then bring it back the next day and get my money back because it's probably going to be needed next week. But the other games that we're just going to kind of, mention, if we want to get deep into it, we can. But you got Carolina heading on the road. Not too often you see the Carolina Panthers minus 1.5 on the road against the New York Jets. The Jets are plus 105, Carolina minus 125, 42 is the over-under. Miami still holding on. They get a nice little bit of a lifeline. They are heading to Cleveland to face the Browns. Dylan Gabriel and the Browns, 3-point favorites, minus 165 on the money line for the Browns, plus 140 for the Dolphins. Over-under sits at 40. New England might be a problem, but they are 7-point favorites as they head to Tennessee, Mike Vrabel, goodness gracious, he might drop 50 on that franchise. But the Patriots, 7-point favorites. Over-under is 42. New England, minus 340 on the money line. Tennessee is plus 270. New Orleans, plus 210 on the money line as they head to Chicago. Chicago's minus 250 on the money line. They are also going to be 5.5-point favorites with the over-under sitting at 47. Green Bay, 6.5-point favorites as they head to the desert to face Kyler Murray. Well, I don't know who's going to start. Arizona, last week did not have Kyler Murray, so keep that in mind. But Green Bay, 6.5-point favorites, minus 310 on the money line. The over-under is 44. Arizona will be plus 255. And then, of course, that game that probably deserved the full talking point, but we couldn't fit it in. Atlanta, plus 115, heads to San Francisco. San Francisco, minus 135 on the money line. They are also going to be 2-point favorites with a over-under of 47.5. Raider Jim, any thoughts on those?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. The Cleveland game is interesting. The -3 for Cleveland, and this will be the week that Miami comes out and plays a good game.
There you go.
Yeah, and I just think that's what's going to happen. I think it's the destiny of Cleveland that's what's going to happen to them throughout the entire season. And then that other game, when I first saw it, the last game, Atlanta at San Francisco minus 2.5. After what I've seen Atlanta do, but not consistently, but it's like, how do you not just have a straight up on this one or 1.5, but a full, the 2 points? I like Atlanta in this one. Plus 2.5 all day long. I don't know how you feel about it, but both of those games, I'd like to know what you think.
Well, I agree with you. My only hold up with Atlanta is going cross country. That might be, but I feel like East Coast teams going west isn't as dramatic because of the body clock. Again, we saw it with the Chargers, even against the Giants for sure. And even somewhat against the Dolphins. But, you're a West Coast team and you play that body clock 10 a.m. game. That's tough. Not really the case when you get an East Coast team coming west. But I like Atlanta as well. I wouldn't be surprised. That might even be a money line sprinkle for me. And I'm glad you brought up Carolina. I think Carolina at 3-3. What a story. How great this is. You ready for the stinkiest bet in the history of the world? I like the Jets on the money line. Look, the Jets are not going to lose or not going to go 0-17. The NFL, I just feel like some of these teams just shoot their leg and end up falling forward and over the finish line. This is a winnable game for the Jets, just because, again, I do think Carolina is playing so above kind of what was expected. I would not be surprised to see the Jets get this win. Again, I can't believe I just said that, but look, I don't think it's going to make it onto my card, but I would not be surprised to see the Jets win. And I do really like Carolina, but again, we started the show by saying it seems like week to week, we just don't know what's going on. And I don't know. I know eventually, or I believe the Jets are going to win a game. Why not this one? It's at home. It's against a team that's not world beaters. And Carolina also 3-0 at home, 0-3 on the road. So little different, something to keep in mind there. I do want to say one thing about Cleveland, and I cannot believe I'm saying this out loud. Give us Shedeur Sanders. Just let us see what he's got. We saw Dylan Gabriel. We saw Joe Flacco. Let's see what Shedeur Sanders has. And you know what? If he goes out and is terrible, we go, okay, fair enough. Now we know why. But I am getting a little worried that the Browns are like, maybe we don't put him in, because then if he plays well, everyone just goes, God, how stupid have you been all season? I don't really have an angle on that game because, I agree with you that I do think Miami's going to play better, but either way, you're either taking Miami minus or plus 3 or 3.5, or Cleveland minus 2.5. And that's just not a way I want to spend my Sunday morning on that side of it. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with that quarterback room, because eventually Shedeur Sanders has to be given a shot. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Now, I do want to say one thing about Myles Garrett. Last year, I was very, very sympathetic for him. He's such a great player. He's never going to make a playoff, or he's never going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. And then he signed a mega deal. My sympathy isn't really there anymore. Sorry, you knew what you were signing up for. It's not like this team fell off a cliff over the last year or two. You knew you were going to have to play picture-perfect defense to win football games. So, I don't know. Again, there was a quote where someone had said something like, yeah, you haven't been able to rush the passer up by 10 in like 3 years. And he goes, yeah. And kind of does this like poor me face. And again, I'm paraphrasing. But again, it's like, bro, I get it. Take the money. I have no problem with that. But don't expect that everything's going to change just because you took the money. You could have got paid a lot of money by somebody and had your chance to win there. So yeah, I just don't have I really like Myles Garrett. I think he's a fantastic football player. I like the guy overall, but I just don't have sympathy. You signed up for it. You're getting paid a lot to lose. Could be worse. But final thoughts, Raider Jim, as we wrap up this episode of the NFL Weekly.
I have to go to the other sport, and I have to talk about Orion Kerkering. Mm-hmm. It's sad that this young man has been subjected to so much ridicule, so much hate. Folks, he's 24 years old. He's been on the big team roster for all of 2 years. He's a kid, and I get it. He's a kid, but he's getting paid to play. But Pedro said it best afterwards. He talked about this is just the stuff you have to work on as a pitcher, your pitching defense. But wow, I don't know how he recovers from that. I hope he has another opportunity to be in the playoffs, be it with the Phillies or with somebody else, and right the wrong. Unfortunately, that's not how sports fans and sports, even journalists, that's not what they remember. Say Bill Buckner. Do you remember all the good things Bill Buckner did in his career? Nope. No, you remember that he let the ball run through between his legs, in a critical game. This young man is going to be a highlight. They're going to show it at the end of the NLCS championships. They're going to show it going into the World Series. They're going to show it at the end of the World Series. It's kind of like March Madness when they don't just show the buzzer beaters. They show the kids that missed that last tip in, or, show them on the bench with the towels over their heads, inconsolable. I just wish that fans in general, and journalists, although I got to say the journalists were pretty good. More importantly, his teammates really came around him. All of his teammates did. And, hats off to those guys who said, hey, man, we had not his fault we couldn't score. And that is a key point. Hey, you should have put 5 on the board, and then that wouldn't have mattered, and you wouldn't have been in that situation. But still, it was very heart-wrenching for me to see. But hey, that's part of the game. But lighten up on this young man, and I hope he has a great, great, long, successful career.
I agree. It's just very, very unfortunate that he did it in Philadelphia, because we're not
a forgiving group. Yeah,
that's not what we do, unfortunately. And I agree. I have 3. He was one of them, so we'll start there. It harkens back. Obviously, Bill Buckner is the first thing, but what a lot of people don't realize about Bill Buckner, there was a game 7 after that. They had 27 outs to play with. They had another game to play with. So yeah, Bill Buckner, and you're right. I didn't know until I was old enough to do my own research. Bill Buckner was a very good baseball player.
Yes, he was.
Very good. And again, you say Bill Buckner, and I mean, it took 30 years for him to be able to go back into Fenway. And of course, now everyone says, all good. I will say for Orion Kerkering, obviously it happened as a mainly Dodger hater, but I am obviously, I do follow the Phillies. I was very upset. It was one of those, what the F are you, like, audibly, what are you doing? Like, yell, oh my God. And you're mad. And then you realize, like, if I am this mad, how does he feel? And my hat's off to him. He faced the media. He was fighting back tears. You could tell. I will say, though, he's probably going to have a very good Major League Baseball career. He's got to be traded. You cannot put him in front of the Philadelphia fans again.
Oh no,
in that jersey. And again, it's not fair, and it's unfortunate. It reminds me of about 4 or 5 years ago, Trent Grisham was playing for the Milwaukee Brewers. A terrible error in right field. It's a fantastic fielder, but that one error, he ends up getting traded to the Padres. The only reason they traded him is, like, we can't run this guy out in front of our fans next year. And you kind of hit the nail on the head with Orion Kerkering. They had 11 innings to put up, 3 or 4 runs, whatever it was. It didn't all come down to him. Unfortunately, that is kind of the lasting image. The second one I'm going to bring up, I want to shout out Alex Mortensen. He is the interim head coach at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. Trent Dilfer has been fired. If you want to go do some research, the Trent Dilfer era at UAB it'll give you a belly laugh. Anyways, Alex Mortensen. Well, why should we care about Alex Mortensen? Well, Alex Mortensen is the son of the late, great Chris Mortensen, who we all probably know when you were growing up. Probably the last time that ESPN was, palatable. That was he was running the sidelines. Obviously, he passed away about a year or two ago. Very excited to see Alex Mortensen. I was very surprised to see his resume. He's worked at Alabama, and he's also worked with the Rams before Trent Dilfer brought him in as the offensive coordinator. So Alex Mortensen, Chris Mortensen was one of my favorite ESPN personalities. Great to see him kind of carrying on that tradition of the family. And finally, this one is by far the most important. I just want to say how happy I am that we have hopefully seen an end to the war in Gaza, Israel, Palestine, whatever you want to call it. But mainly, I am very, very happy that families have been reunited. It's been a hellacious 2 years since all this started. I don't really care about your politicals, about this or that. The only thing I personally care about is that families are whole, or as whole as they can be. Yeah. And there's a lot that needs to be figured out. And trust me, it's not going to be talked about on this podcast. Neither of us are going to be polled, and neither of us want to be polled on it. The only thing I care about, again, families have been reunited as best as possible. And for some, they've been given, some sort of closure, whether that's from remains or something like that. So, again, we sit here and we talk football, and, even the commenters, oh, this and that, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, if you're sitting back and you're watching football and you're listening to us two clowns talk football, you have a very good life. And sometimes we forget that. And moments like this, seeing them reunited, really reminds me that, you know what? My life ain't so bad after all. Amen. So just wanted to just say thank the Lord for that. I'm so grateful that those families are whole again. And hopefully we're going to get some stability in that region that we so desperately need. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Take care.